guys, and welcome back to my channel. And I'm sorry if you can hear any sort of background noise. They're doing some work next door, well, not even next door, the door after next door, and it's so noisy, but I wanted to film, so I'm gonna do it anyway. So if you can hear that, I do apologize. So today I thought I would tell you how we brought our dogs to Sweden and the process that we went through and the options that we looked into and the one that we actually chose in the end. If you are new to my channel, you like beauty, fashion, lifestyle videos, and please do hit that subscribe button on the right hand side of your screen. You just get updated every time I upload a video. Love to have you back, love to have you as part of my little journey. So I'm going to get straight on in. So there's quite a few little options that you can do to obviously take your dog abroad with you. We looked into many options. One of them was driving from the UK all the way to Sweden. However, that was like a good 3-day drive, and we personally just said no to that one straight away on the basis that we have quite energetic dogs, and I just thought it'd be so cruel for them to be stuck in a car for 3 days, because it's like a solid 3-day drive, and we just thought no, that's not really fair for them. So we decided that wasn't a great option. I think that's definitely probably one of the cheaper options. Obviously you got to arrange transport and that sort of thing, but if you already have a car and you're going to take your car with you, then that obviously is one of the cheaper options. You just pay for fuel, and I think there is one ferry you have to pay for, and that again you have to be a little bit more sort of thoughtful of, because the dogs actually have to go into like a kennel on the ferry rather than actually stay with you, so you do have to think about that as well. How are your dogs in kennels and that sort of thing. But for us, taking the ferry was not an option. Another option was to fly them as like baggage, so on a flight with us. So that had its own problems, and there was quite a few problems with us trying to book that one. First of all, it was a lot cheaper than the option that we actually took. It cost like £70 to put your dog in the hold, but what we actually found was you could only have one dog at a time, which we have two, so that wasn't really great. And second of all, you couldn't have a direct flight, you had to fly somewhere else, and then you had to fly to Stockholm afterwards. So it was like a 5-hour flight instead of a 2.5-hour flight, and you had to swap planes. And again, I thought that'd be too stressful for the dogs. I wanted to be as sort of smooth the process as possible, putting them in under a sort of the minimum amount of stress than possibly could in those situations. They'd never flown before, so I wanted it to be nice and simple for them. So in the end, we decided to go with a agency, like a pet travel agency. We went with a company called Pet Air UK, and they are basically just a animal travel agency. They arrange flights and that sort of thing. So what they were able to do was they were able for the dogs to be booked on as cargo rather than like baggage, as they would have been if we had booked it. They could actually book them as a cargo load. So this route that we actually took was very expensive. It was probably the most expensive option, but it was the easiest one. And obviously the agency give you all the information you need in regards to what they need to have, like in regards to like vaccinations, paperwork, all that sort of thing. They sort of tell you at each stage what you need to do and how to do that. So for instance, for the vets, we had to get passports for our dogs. That cost around £40 just for the passport each dog. I didn't think that was that expensive, but then you also have to have a rabies vaccination. I think that's pretty normal when you're taking your dogs abroad, just to have them rabies sort of vaccinated. Obviously in the UK we don't have rabies, so they obviously didn't have it, but now they've been vaccinated. You have to have that done 28 days before you fly, so definitely something to consider. You have to have it done before they are flying, at least like a month in advance, otherwise you won't be able to put them on the plane. They also had to be sort of updated with all their vaccinations in regards to, you know, when they're puppies they get vaccinated for all the diseases, and then they get their boosters each year, so they had to have their boosters redone so that they were completely, you know, safe and vaccinated in that as well. We also obviously put Advocate on them and worming tablets, but we did that anyway normally, but you didn't have to do that, but we just wanted to make sure that they were nice and healthy before they flew. You also had to, before you flew, we did ours 10 days before the dogs actually flew out, because we flew out before the dogs. So we flew out on a Sunday and the dogs came in the Thursday, just to give us a few days to settle in and get everything sorted, get them stuff that they may need here before they actually came. So for 10 days before the dogs flew, we went back to the vet and we had to get a fit to fly certificate from the vet. Now our actual agency provided the certificate, so the vet only had to sign it. So the vet signed that. They basically check everything, so they check their heart, they make sure they're not being sick or have diarrhea and all that sort of thing. They just make sure that there's nothing wrong with them. They check through their notes to make sure they don't have like epilepsy or heart problems or anything like that that might make them unsafe to fly. And once all those checks are done, they just sign that form. You send that to the agency and that gets put on your file, but you also take that with you to the airport when the dogs fly. So with regards to actually going to the airport, my parents took my dogs to the airport, and with them they took their passports and their fit to fly certificates. That was very, very important. They wouldn't have been able to fly if they were not with them. We also kept their collars on and their leads, obviously, because my parents needed them to walk them and that sort of thing. We were told that they might not make it to Sweden because sometimes the airlines don't leave them on the crate. I'm not sure why, and I can confirm that they did not make it to Sweden. I don't know why. I don't know what they did with them. My boggles. I don't see why they couldn't just keep it clipped on. But anyway, when they got to the airport, they met a representative from the agency who took the dogs from my parents. So my parents said goodbye. They put them in their crates. They said goodbye. You know, the representative was very sweet and like made sure they introduced themselves to the dogs and made sure that the dogs were comfortable with them, that sort of thing. And then they drove them to the British Airways sort of departure lounge for dogs, cats, animals, whatever you're taking with you. And there is where the representative actually checked the dogs into their flight. So we didn't have to do any of that because we had a representative. So that was really nice and simple. We basically just passed the dogs over. They took it from there. Once the dogs had been safely checked in, the representative then texted me to tell me that they had been safely checked in and that they were now just waiting for their flight. Now when they were actually waiting for the flight, apparently they don't have to stay in their crate because they have to wait for a good like 3 to 4 hours before actually getting on the plane. They get put into like a kennel or something, so they have space to walk around and that sort of thing. And if they need to do a wee, they can do that there, and they have water and that sort of thing provided for them. Then they get put on the plane and they get shipped over to Sweden. So we then collected them from the Arlanda airport here in Stockholm, and again we had to find the actual place where you pick dogs up from, which was quite tricky when you don't know the area, but we found it in the end. But the actual system was quite different to what I was expecting. You basically go to the cargo area in that Arlanda airport for dogs, and they give you lots and lots of paperwork. You then have to get back in your car, drive around 7 to 10 minutes to a different location where the customs are. They check through them and then you have to pay a customs fee as well. Because they were done as cargo, we had to pay customs fee, and that was around £150 for both of the dogs. So it wasn't like super expensive, but it was another expense that we had to think about, and we were made aware of it from the agency that you probably would have to pay a customs fee. So we paid the £150, and then we got all of our papers signed and all that sort of thing, and the actual customs people said, you do know if the paperwork isn't correct, the dogs will be sent back. Which was obviously quite frightening, but everything was fine. So then we had to go back to the location we were at before, and there we waited for the dogs to be dropped off from the flight, and we got to go in and take them. Now I must say the dogs, when we picked them up, were quite scared. I think they'd had quite a traumatic experience. They'd obviously never flown before. They were a bit like, where the hell am I? But overall they were absolutely fine, completely healthy, that sort of thing. We also didn't take our crates with us because when you go with an agency you have to buy a crate, which they provide, but you obviously pay for it. We had no space for that. We hired a car. It wasn't big enough at all to fit even one of the crates in. So we just said we don't want them. That was absolutely fine. They just let us leave them where they were, and we just took the dogs. As we were told that the collars and leads might not be there, we obviously took separate ones with us, which was great because they actually weren't there, so that we could use the ones that we actually brought to the airport. That was definitely something to think about as well. So overall, a really good experience using an agency. There are lots of different options as well. We did go with the most expensive, but I do think it was the least stressful and the one that had sort of the most information provided. And if you are looking to take your animal away with you, then you do have to think of the actual cost of it, because it is very, very expensive. And it's not just the flight you have to pay for, it's the vaccinations, it's the passports, it's the custom fees, lots to think about as well. I really hope you found this video helpful, informative. Let me know below if you've ever travelled with your dogs and the sort of routes that you took. Are there any more simple ones that maybe I hadn't found? Do let us know below so that everyone can sort of learn, because I couldn't really find that much information about taking dogs like abroad. It wasn't really clear. So do let me know below, and I will definitely see you in my next video. See you later.